So, I didn't think I'd ever be talking about this series again, but, Mother of God. Promised Neverland, of course, a very popular manga series that ended last summer, ran for 20 volumes, sold a whole bunch of copies, and is, of course, in the process of getting an anime adaptation from Cloverworks. 2 years ago, they graced us with the 12-episode Season 1, and now we are in the process of Season 2. If you're new here and unfamiliar with my thoughts on this series, essentially I think the first 2/3 are fantastic, and then, the final third, I think they kinda, fall face first into dog poop. But the key thing is I still really love the first 2/3. And since the first season only did about a quarter of the series, there was still a lot of really great content left to adapt that I was really excited to see again. So then Season 2 came out, and to call it controversial is a bit of an understatement. In order to discuss this further, I'm going to be putting up a spoiler warning. I don't think I'm going to be talking about the final third much, so this isn't going to be super heavy spoilers on how the series ends or anything, but I do want to talk about the events of, let's say, up to like chapter 120, so if you want to avoid all that stuff, click off. But yeah, let's get into what Season 2 is all about. Now, it is worth noting that a while ago we actually learned that this season would not be a one-to-one adaptation of the manga, because it did come out that they were going to be adding a few things, making some changes that were supposedly approved by Shirai, the writer. And a lot of people might groan at this, but when I heard it, I was actually kind of excited, because if you remember, most of my problems with the later parts of this series come from there just not being enough time to really develop any of these plot points. So everything that was happening wasn't necessarily, something that shouldn't have been happening, but it all just felt super bloated and rushed. So my hope with these changes is that they would give more time to develop certain characters, develop certain plot points. They could really change the series for the better, and if they kept, on this pace, then eventually when they get around to adapting the full thing, they might be able to save the ending. And while in a way that's what they're doing, it's not really happening in the way that I envisioned. So episode 1 comes out, and it's a bit weird. It starts with them skipping 2 chapters, just completely eradicating them. These were the chapters after the kids escape Gracefield and they get trapped down the hole with some monsters and got to escape. In hindsight, it's really not that important, although I do feel like it could have been a really good introduction episode to just, bring us back into this world, but they opted not to do that. Whatever. But then in episode 1, they decide to adapt 6 chapters. And that's a lot. Like, if you're familiar with how, adaptations of weekly manga go, you're usually getting 3-4 chapters per episode max. So 6 is a lot, and it really showed, because this was a super rushed episode. Not necessarily bad, because the content of the manga was good, but you really didn't have any time to breathe. Things just kept happening and happening. It was crazy. The gang meets up with Sanju and Mujika, demons. They're like, whoa, friendly demons, what's this about? And they take him in, and there we are. So it was a weird introduction, and some flags were definitely going off for me. However, episode 2 was a lot better. It was still very fast-paced. They adapted 4 chapters, but, 4 is less than 6. So, it felt a lot more focused. It was interesting, just like the manga was. The production value was still high. A very enjoyable episode, although I noticed a very odd omission, because it's around this point in the manga where the kids learn about mass production farms, which was this really fucked up and disturbing aspect of this world. And they do come back later in the series and play a bigger role. This part was cut from the anime, which was a bit confusing to me, because I'm like, okay, maybe it's disturbing, maybe you don't want to get into this right now, but why not, right? It's there. You might as well just have the scene in there like it was in the manga, but they just didn't. And I'm like, whatever. Anime adaptations change little things like this all the time. I don't really care that much. Season 2 got off to a bit of a weird start, but I think we're going to be good. Episode 3 is the most baffling thing I've ever seen. So about the first half follows the manga pretty well, but there was another very, very odd omission. When Emma leaves Mujika leaves her with a message to find the 7 walls. This is an extremely important plot point that they start setting up here, and it carries on throughout the whole series. And there's no mention of it at all. That was weird, and that was a bit unsettling. Obviously, it's still possible to bring it up later, as this is far from the last time it is mentioned. But again, it's one of those things where, why wouldn't you? Right? I mean, it'll take like 5 extra seconds. Just have it in there. Anyway, then they get to the bunker in the scene which is now infamous. This is where they are supposed to meet Yugo. A series of events plays out and they end up in Goldie Pond, which is the setting of the next major arc, and one of my favorites. I was extremely excited to see Yugo in the anime because I think he's a fantastic character. His whole introduction is wonderful. Anyway, they get down there, they open up the door to the room he's supposed to be in, and I was so confused at this point, and I was kind of scared to watch more. As it goes on, we discover that there were people who used to be in the bunker. Like, all of Yugo's friends were still here. We see their names scribbled on the wall. But instead of the word poachers that was there in the manga, which is a clear foreshadowing of Goldie Pond, it says the word help. I'm like, Yugo isn't here, and they removed... they're skipping Goldie Pond, aren't they? What the fuck? But nay, I was saying to myself, Yugo can still show up. I mean, he can just, like, walk in. He could be in another room. Who knows what's gonna happen? Goldie Pond can still be there. I don't know why they got rid of the poachers. And then they find a secret room with a phone call with a recording of Minerva. That is something that was supposed to happen midway through Goldie Pond. And that's how the episode ends. So I was just sitting there in a state of shock. I'm like, holy shit, I need to make a video about this. Are they actually doing this? Are they actually going to skip one of the most beloved parts of this series? Why on earth would they do that? But I held off because I had to keep watching. I'll watch episode 4, okay? Maybe they can still introduce Yugo. Maybe they can go out hunting and stumble across Goldie Pond. You know, as long as they're still here in the shelter, I think that, you know, we can somehow get things back on track. You know, they changed a bunch, cut out a bunch of really cool stuff with Yugo, but I still think it's possible to, you know, swing back into the canon of the manga and... They're doing the shelter raid. They're doing the shelter. They skipped 60 chapters. This is the point where it became absolutely 100% clear that this would no longer be following the manga at all. They take one of the most exciting and suspenseful scenes from the manga, where Yugo, Lucas, and all the kids had to escape Andrew Ratri. Yugo and Lucas, of course, sacrifice themselves. They have a crazy standoff with Andrew, which results in his death, one of my favorite moments in the entire series. And that whole thing was just replaced with a bunch of faceless, nameless guards being outsmarted by stupid children. I guess they're not stupid, that's the whole point, but you know what I mean. And then these gross-looking CGI demons come out of nowhere and eat them, and it felt so wrong. I mean, it's hard to detach myself from the source material, but even if you're anime only, I really don't think there's much suspense here, because you don't know who any of these people are. They're just random people after the kids. So yeah, Goldie Pond is gone. I do not understand this at all, to be frank. Changing the ending was perfectly okay with that. Definitely cool. But you were supposed to do that after you got through all of the stuff that was still really good. I am honestly really disappointed that we're not going to see some of this stuff. Like Yugo's whole introduction, the conflict he has with the kids, discovering Goldie Pond, this whole other world of, you know, like illegal poaching. It was so cool. A lot of really interesting characters. I wanted to see the fucking monkey with his like Sakuga tail. And then, you know, like I said, the shelter raid, such a fantastic sequence. Not gonna see any of it. And, you know, I know like we're manga readers. It'll always be there for us, but a lot of people are anime only, and they stay anime only, no matter how many people tell them how good the manga is. So a lot of people are just never going to see this part of the series, which is really sad. Because while I don't like where the series ends up going, I still think this part is very much worth checking out. But so they're going in a different direction. They botch the raid. What happens next? Where is this series gonna go? The one thing I think they're going to keep the same is Norman's fate, because the reveal of Norman being alive and being, you know, with all the Lambda crew, that happens halfway through Goldie Pond, but it is very detached from, you know, what happens in Goldie Pond. So they can really squeeze that in at any point, and I think we can count on that being the same. But after that, man, I could not begin to guess where this is going. It seems like they are setting up Isabella to be the villain. I mean, she was already the villain in season 1, but this is just such a weird move to me, because the whole point of like the ending of the Gracefield arc was Isabella just accepting her defeat and letting the kids go. She was their mother, and while she may have done unforgivable things, she still sees them as her children and still cares about them. And you can see that when the kids finally escape, she is happy for them. So her accepting this deal to go track the kids down is very odd. I do think it is, a possibility that she is just lying to the demons and that she is going to be on the side of the children in the end. It didn't really seem like that. It really seemed like they were just setting her up to be the next big bad, and that felt really off to me. Like, there's a reason she was never the villain again in the manga, because she couldn't be. And yeah, I don't know if they're going to be incorporating elements from the final arcs in the series at all, which honestly may be a good thing, but there were still a lot of really cool ideas in the final bits of this series that if they really never explore them, it's not going to sit right with me. I guess the only good thing to come out of this is that we're probably going to see Phil again this season. We weren't going to see him at all, but now we probably will. So that's cool at least. So now I kind of want to talk about just why this might be happening, because it's so baffling to me. Anime original endings are not uncommon. They are a little more rare nowadays, but back 10-15 years ago, everything was getting an anime original ending. A really popular series, it gets an anime, the manga isn't done, and they're like, well shit, we'll just pull something out of our ass for an ending. Happened all the time. The difference here though is that The Promised Neverland is over, and it has been over for a while. Them changing things makes absolutely no sense to me unless they are planning this season to be the last one. And I don't really understand that either, because this is such a massively popular series. If there was the potential to make 5 seasons, why didn't they decide to make 5 seasons? Like, you can keep this going for a long time, and it will probably be more profitable than most of the things you ever make. So why on earth would anyone choose to do this? I mean, maybe they just want to end it now to capitalize on, like, the peak of the series. Volume 20 just came out, it's massive. Oh, and now the anime's ending, it's massive. But I just don't see this as a reasonable excuse. Remember when I said this stuff was apparently approved by Shirai? Oh, what the fuck, dude? Like, is that true? Like, he was just like, oh yeah, you can rape my story. I don't know, man, it's nuts. I just had to talk about it because I was just so shocked by it all. And it really does not seem to be going over well in the community. A lot of people are very upset, and I don't blame them. We may end up with a decent product for anime-only fans, but I mean, there's just no denying that this is a huge disappointment to so many people. Anyway, that'll do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. You can leave your thoughts on this season of The Promised Neverland in the comments below. I'd love to hear what some of you have to say about it. And I will see you guys very soon. I will have a haul video coming out in a few days. So take care, and until then, please go listen to the new Weezer album. It is incredible.